right, there's Pat Core there. I'll have to look to see Robin Anders, Terry Belair, John McFarlane, and we have 2 apologies people who are going to be here. For the original Trapdoor membership, we had 26 men and 4 women, I think, and all of those at the time were single. So the people you're looking at here are a small cross-section of a very diverse group in one sense, but they actually had one common origin for most of our members, and that was they at various times participated in that wonderful thing called the Agricultural Science course.
Yeah, 65 also, we were up there at Easter and it snowed. Well, we almost had I remember we slept in the lodge, but snow came in under the eaves.
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
So we had an arrangement whereby the winter's supply of grog would be put into the club before winter. And that generated a system which the current day accountants would be horrified about, where we had this honour system for grog, and you'd take grog out of the cabinet, put it into your wherever, and have a grog sheet filled out, and we used to account for it that way. All the water for our use was collected from the roof and put into tanks underground. What do we have for gas?
Pumped up to the head of tank with a double action pump.
Right, now it's a pity we haven't got Liz Wilson here today, because she was telling me that the thing she hated most about Trapdoor early on was that she didn't like getting pumping the water up for her own shower, and she'd try and con someone else to do it for her. But depending on what the relationship was with that person, she either got a short shower or a long shower. And you sort of knew in 1963, the year I was there, and where some of my mates, the old originals, all came up and asked for free ski-tow tickets and maybe a bit of free accommodation. That's where we started hatching the idea of a ski club. But the tows up there were nothing like today. We had a big rope tow at the Blue Ribbon, which was a tow was built in New Zealand called a Hamilton tow, and that was the biggest lift by far. We had a new Pommer lift on the Basin, which was the first Pommer, I think, introduced at least into Victoria. And then there was another crappy little rope tow which had been somewhere else before, and that was just servicing the main Mount Higgy, right above University Ski Club. And and I'll just pass this around, see if you get a grin from some of the old guys here. This Dover. In fact, one of these fellows ought to model this, and it won't be me. It should be Corey, I reckon. If you can imagine it, this is the rope that goes from the tow lift way up there, down round the bottom pulley, comes round up the other side.
And running continuously.
Running continuously round and round and round. In wintry conditions, trying to hang on to this thing's pretty tough. The rope could actually be icy. On top of that, there are pulleys on the way up. This nutcracker thing was what you used. And the camera won't see that, will it, Patrick?
Tighten on like that,
yeah.
And you pull back a bit to make sure it's like that. And away you went up to the top of the slope.
Take him away, Macca.
Now the only problem was occasionally people would get to the top of the slope and say, that's a wonderful device, isn't it? But it hurts a bit when you go over those pulley things, because they used to put their hand there as well.
And Brian Smith was definitely the president, wasn't he? Yeah. And I think the first meeting could have been at the Ag School, the Agriculture School.
Yeah. I think Nick was the first secretary, because I've got the
probably is, yes.
I've got the copies of the minutes of the first 2 meetings written by Nick and signed as Nick UN secretary. Yeah.
So you weren't the first secretary, Patrick?
Oh, bother.
I didn't go up to select the site, but we had, I think, you and Terry and a few others, and maybe Bruce Douglas had selected the site late in '63.
Yeah, I remember, and Bruce Douglas was a good friend of Brian Smith's through the scouting.
Right.
And that's how Bruce volunteered to do a design for the lodge as a young, very clever architect. And I was on that first trip we made. I think Bruce was there, and I remember Frank Uran. There were about 4 of us. And we picked the site as being the one that had the best view of Mount Feathertop, framed in the Loch Spur, very slide in the Loch Spur.
Well, I think it decided to form, but then as you said, we needed money, and we used to run the Wanderers Ski Club, which were weekend ski club trips to Falls Creek.
Yeah.
And we used to have a bus that met us near Melbourne Uni. We'd drive people up, accommodation on Friday night, skiing on Saturday, ski hire, accommodation Saturday night, back again. We used to do it for the princely sum of £22 a year, which when it was, and that was instigated, I think, by Andy Begg and Gus, people on that.
Andy Begg was running Wanderers
Was that it?
before we, and so we got to know Andy through Bruce.
Right.
And then they offered to join us in Trapdoor and offered for us to take over Wanderers as a money
Yes.
We used
raising
to take,
concern.
a couple of us would go up.
Trips.
They were great weekends, I remember, except for the accommodation in Mount Beauty. I thought left a bit to be desired. It was freezing cold in that
Yes.
building.
Yeah, but the nights in the Tawonga pub were nice before we got back there.
I got to remind, I don't remember ever being cold at Mount Beauty in the chalet, never ever.
The Wanderers contributed quite a bit of money to the pot. We put in some money, but it was only $80 or £80, wasn't it? And some of our fathers guaranteed the loan. I recall.
These are the letter written by Nick in March 1964, talking about the plans for the club. At the moment we have 28 members on the register, and so far only 14 of these have shown their confidence in the venture by paying the £5 joining fee. A call of £50 has been made, and this plus the £5 joining fee must be paid by June the 30th, 1964. It is expected that a second call of anything up to £70 will be made before March 1965. The amount of this second...
The whole building, of course, was built without the use of any power tools whatsoever. Every single thing was manual. Except for when we used to borrow a bit of electricity from Tarky, who had a generator, borrow a long extension lead. We never could quite work out why, when they arrived and the motor was still warm, how it got warm.
How about you tell us how Lot 28 became Trapdoor?
I remember we had a futile meeting at 15 Royal Parade, or perhaps in Princes Street, where Nick and I were, and Frank Uren were living together, and we couldn't come up with a name. And then I think it was your mum, wasn't it? Who suggested Trapdoor?
Because bearing in mind that Trapdoor is a ski run that no one ever uses now, which is just on the western side of the... I was on the western side of the top of the old Davenport Palmer.
I think, Ron, you're asking about Bruce Douglas, the design, because we're all single, we didn't have much money, and Bruce said the cheapest thing is a square. And he didn't want it to look like a farm shed, so he ran the roof on the diagonal. And there were meant to be braces, props up out to the eave, and Bruce went overseas before the first season actually. We all thought he was going away because the lodge was going to fall down when the snow fell on the roof. But,
We were really pretty well self-sufficient. And things changed pretty dramatically in the 70s when things like power reticulation, water reticulation came along, and things got a lot easier. But in the early days, that's the way it was. And we weren't the only ones. There was Alpine Ski Club, University Ski Club, the Drift Chalet. All of those people did exactly the same or similar things. Somewhere about 83, 84, it was clear that we were running out of room in the original lodge. And I won't say that's to do with people getting spouses and getting married and kids and stuff, but it clearly wasn't enough room. So the first decision that was made was to put in a much bigger drawing room.
Yeah, lower bedroom.
And the lower bedroom.
Yep.
That was it.
And you removed the upper bedroom.
And then 92, for some reason that I can't recall, we better try and work it out, Patrick. We redid the living room windows, extended the whole place, a metre or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
extended it a metre, went out a metre.
Put the floor down.
Living room.
To expand the living room area because it was considered too small, and we felt we could take over the balcony that was outside. Well, I think the biggest change that took place was the decision to bring the children in of the existing members as members of the club.
I look at Ed Weiner and think, well, there were some people who gained membership by simply having the great benefit and joy of being a child offspring from someone who was an original member.
I worked hard for my membership. Actually, that's one of my memories of being a kid at Trapdoor, is being up there in one of the years where there was no snow. And I remember it must have been 11, actually I'm pretty sure you were there as well, Andrew. It must have been 11 o'clock at night and it started snowing for the first time. and all the kids got up out of bed, and we all got out of the club to find all the other kids had come out of all the other clubs, and it turned into this enormous snow fight, club to club, down Devonport Axis. Yeah, it was fantastic. So the snowball fights, I agree with, they're good.
For his mother to get out there these days, it needs to be about 18 degrees, 3 metres of snow, no wind,
And sunshine.
and sunshine, and there needs to be a latte station at the bottom.
Yeah.
Marshmallows in front of that fire.
Yeah, the fire.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the
No, we didn't
fire.
talk about the
fireplace.
fire.